In this video, I want to sort of kick off the business concept project by walking you through an example of what you would want to do developing the concept and developing some of the revenue assumptions. So the concept I picked was a college-oriented restaurant, and basically, again, you start out with a need, and this is something that I developed at another location, another campus. But I mean, honestly, I haven't been around this campus to know if it's the same situation. I updated it a little bit to reflect the information for this campus. I'm not 100% sure on the need, but that's, this will be good enough for me for example purposes. So the assumption is that the college campus has very limited to no alternatives for dining, entertainment, and socializing that are, number one, primarily student, faculty, and staff oriented, is reflected in the atmosphere, menu, entertainment, pricing, hours of operation, service to campus, etc. Number two, off campus but near campus, so that they can make their own operating decisions and be driven by customer preferences as opposed to whatever rules would normally apply to eating options on campus. And so therefore, number three, they'd be within easy walking distance of the campus or short drive. The solution, something I call the library cafe, sort of refers to the notion that you're at the library. If somebody wants to know where you are, you're at the library. It's a full service restaurant, possibly a bar adjacent to campus. Atmosphere and promotions directed towards students, strong Wi-Fi, plenty of room to hang out, study, or whatever. The hours of operation will reflect customer preferences. Open later, probably not open as early, but then open later, possibly sometimes during the semester. It may make sense for them to be open 24 hours, particularly around finals and so forth. Would be open 7 days a week. And that way, for students living on campus, they would have that option on the weekends, but not for holidays. Menu and pricing reflects student preferences. The game would have a game room, regular live entertainment, small private rooms, so that if you wanted to get a group together, go over there and work on stuff, you could. Customer access to printers, scanners, computers, etc., so that if while you're over there working on something, you need to do something technically, you could do that without having to go back over to campus to do it. Big one, provides for on-campus delivery. So you're not only serving people in a sit-down mode, but you would be close enough to campus that you sort of could make regular runs to campus for deliveries. And I think that potentially improves the revenue stream. Again, primary customer base is student, faculty, and staff. There could be a secondary customer base from Birmingham and the surrounding area. I don't assume that in the project. I wouldn't really know at this stage how to estimate what the demand for that would be. And so think of that as upside. So generally, we assume that the business will be opening on the first day of the fall semester. And that way we can create sort of a seasonal month-by-month calendar of demand. The customer accounts will be adjusted for the time school is not in session and when there's summer school or Jan terms. Primary customer base will be student, faculty, staff. Obviously, therefore, we need to develop assumptions related to separately for student, faculty, and staff. So for students, assume 1,200 students on campus per day. I'm going to break that down into the number of student customers per day as a percentage of students on campus. And so we're going to start with an assumption that it's 10% in the first month, so growing to 40% by the end of the spring. The 40% number would reflect, if you thought about it, let's just say during the week, that one time per day during the week, on average, a student comes over there. And so you get all the students once a week. Well, obviously that's not exactly true, but you're likely to get, maybe half the students twice a week or something like that. So some will use you more often than once a week, and therefore on average it winds up being that. And then one time per week on the weekend, and that, again, remember, it covers deliveries and sort of reflects the fact that you got students that one of their meals they may either want to come over and hang out instead of hanging out in the dorms, or they may order for delivery. Remember, some students may never go over there, others will come often, so this sort of balances that out. How might I go about getting to this? I could probably do sort of an informal survey of the students on campus for a concept like this, and that might bear these numbers out. I don't have the benefit of that for this presentation, but I would expect you guys to do something like that. I would weight the number of customers as a percentage of the total students on campus, then by some different weighting over different months based on whether there are actually that number of students on campus at that time. So during a regular semester, you would expect the full 1,200 students to be on campus every day. In Jan term, you might expect that only 50% of the students would actually be on campus. Summer semester, we're going to assume 10% of students on campus. Breaks, we'll assume 0%. For faculty, there's about 100 faculty on campus per day. We're going to go starting at 10%, going to 30%. This is about 1.5 times per week, and it does account for both the fact that they might come over and eat, but they also may get a delivery for a faculty meeting or something like that. It does not assume any kind of consumption or presence on the weekend. We'll just leave it at that. And again, also weighted based on the month of the year. The number of students on campus is weighted, and it's weighted in the same way as the students. And so the idea is we think the faculty patterns are about like the student patterns in terms of being on campus. Staff's a little bit different. There are 300 staff on campus. The number of staff per day, we're going to say starting at 20%, growing to 40% by the end of the spring. We'll consume this, so that's somewhere between 1 to 2 times per week per staff. They're sort of a more captive audience, and that's part of why we think that's a little bit higher. The students, obviously, they can get in the car, drive off, do whatever they want. The faculty come and go as they teach classes. The staff are sort of an 8 to 5, 9 to 5 kind of position. And so if they're going to get something to eat, they want to get that something to eat quickly and nearby. And so that's kind of, we would expect a little bit higher utilization there. And same thing, something else that's different is that unlike faculty and students, staff generally have to be on campus, but for vacations in their job. And so not only are they 100% here during the regular semester, but they're 100% here during Jan term and summer term. They're here getting ready for the long semesters. And in the weeks where there's no class at all, they're still here, although that's when some of them take vacations. So we're just going to assume that about a 50% presence in those weeks. And when you take all of that, then you need to basically build it out into some sort of a calendar. And so in the investment period, we're assuming really nothing in terms of staff faculty adjustments, because we aren't even open, so it doesn't matter. In the regular semesters, as I said, we're assuming 100% consumption. In months where there may be a week with no school, figure that you've got 100% for the weeks there is school and 0% for the weeks there's no school for staff and faculty. And you got to work through a similar logic: 100% during the weeks there's school, 50% the weeks there's no school for staff. And so, for example, our month 4 comes up to 75% average, 50% for 2 weeks, 100% for 2 weeks. And you can kind of follow that logic down if you want to for the whole thing. Clearly the one that's really going to be tough for us is going to be that 12th week, which we would call the fourth week of July to the third week of August. There's no classes. Um, for 3 weeks out of that, there's just the one summer week and then 3 weeks break. And so hardly any faculty or student presence for that period. And of course, we're kind of being carried by faculty, but that's the reality of this business is that it's going to ebb and flow with the campus. So those are kind of the assumptions on quantity of customers, and then we've got menu and prices. So again, here's kind of how I think about the menu. That's just to give you guys the idea that hey, you really need to be thinking in terms of what you're going to serve and how in order to appeal to your customer base. We are targeting a price range per customer of somewhere in the $10 to $15 range, which I'm told would classify this as an inexpensive option by Birmingham standards. So we'll model it the midpoint of that $12.50 for this first example, and then we're going to assume that prices grow annually at a 2% inflation rate. So that becomes kind of the basis for doing our modeling, and you'll see in a separate presentation how I put that in to create a revenue model. Thanks.